Welcome to the Armchair Coaching Podcast. My name is Coach Sheffer. I am the offensive line coach at Brentsville District High School in Nokesville, Virginia. And we have another great guest tonight. But first, if you're watching us on YouTube, do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe button down below. That's going to help expand our community here on the podcast. If you'd rather listen to this in podcast form, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Anchor, as well as many other podcast platforms. So you can find us there. Make sure you give us a good review so that we can expand this coaches community that we have going here. So tonight we have another great guest. We have Coach John Arnett, who is the run game coordinator and offensive line coach at Summer Creek High School in Houston, Texas. I'm glad I've got another Texas coach coming on tonight. So welcome in tonight, Coach.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Anytime I get to talk ball and share things, it's a great time. You know, as coaches, I think we're lucky. We are one of those people that gets a profession that's a passion, and there's no better deal. I tell people all the time, I've never even went to real work. I've went to school my whole life. And especially we're lucky down in Texas that most of us are full-time employees of the district. I teach science also. Just kind of a little bit about me as an intro. Graduated 2000, 38 years old. I'm from the Houston area predominantly. I went to a school, Barbers Hill. From there, I was lucky enough to go play at Stephen F. Austin, which is, I always want to say 1AA, but an FCS school up in Nacogdoches, Texas, which if you're not from Texas, you would be confused where to find it. But from Texas, you would know it's up there behind the piney curtain of the East Texas in the woods there. And, to me, O-line is my identity. I've been lucky enough out of 38 years, 26 has literally been spent consecutive either playing or coaching offensive line. As soon as I had been done playing O-line, I started back out. I played or got to coach again for my head coach in high school, Don Price, who's a longtime Southeast Texas great coach. A guy that a lot of influence on me, him and my offensive line coach from high school, Kenneth Skidmore. I've been real lucky all along is what I'm trying to say. Started with them, a great guys hired me back and I started the junior high. And for all you coaches out there, if you know how that is, but I think everybody, needs to pay those dues, without knowing how to tell someone to put pads in pants. It's hard to actually coach things. You got to learn how to be specific. From there, I got my first varsity job up in East Texas. And when we say East Texas down here, we mean up more the northeast side of Texas, about 150, 200 miles east of Dallas, a town, Hallsville, which was about a 5A school in Texas. That's about 2,000 people, right around there, 2,500. I was there 3 years as assistant O-line coach, and one of the best opportunities that possibly could have happened there. I was the assistant O-line coach at a guy that was just at the twilight of his career named Pat Rippey. Pat Rippey was the head O-line coach at Nevada Reno all throughout the 80s and stuff with Chris Alt, and won a national championship and was probably the biggest influence on how my beliefs and my philosophy of O-line play is, because he taught me so much about what it really means. And just a quick little tidbit, little pearl is he said, you don't ever watch film, you study it. And man, that makes a lot of sense. As coaches, you need to do that. And so from there, after I was able to be able to apprentice under him, I went to a small school which was loaded with talent, absolutely lucky to go, called Tatum. They're a 2A school at the time, which is now 3A, and I believe they've moved up to 4A now, but there's about 400 kids in the high school, and we were still able to have, you think about it, there's out of 400 kids in a high school, about 200 are male, and we had 126, 9 through 12. So there's great participation. Several NFL players have come out of there. We had unbelievable talent there. Guy was able to play in the semifinals, quarterfinals, and the regional finals, which is in Texas, the 5th round, 4th round, and 3rd round, 3 years I was there. So I definitely learned a lesson there is that, the Larrys and Joes are sometimes more important than the X's and O's. You got to have players first, and then you go from there. At that point, Don Price had called me back up. He was at C. King down in Houston. I really wasn't interested in leaving, but then around the Houston areas, it's just some opportunities that you don't miss. You know, if you look in the NFL right now, there's more NFL players from Houston, Texas than anywhere else in the nation, and it's obvious. You know, when I was at CE King, lucky enough to have a young man on the team. I'm not going to say I'm coaching because those great ones you don't really coach once much. Travion Williams, who played for A&M and now is for the Bengals, and he was unreal. What a special kid. For those of you that have been able to coach NFL caliber kids, you'll know that they just have those intangibles. Like I've never seen him in 3 years not finish a play in the end zone. We could have been on the negative one in practice on air. We'd have to wait on him to get back. And he was just such a naturally driven young man and deserves accolades. Deserves everything that he deserved at A&M there. From there, got the opportunity to go to a larger school, Deer Park, Texas, work under Chris Massey, who Chris Massey is under the, you would say the Mike Johnston and Gary Joseph over in Katy. He had won the state championship at Katy. He was the OCO line coach there. Was able to learn a lot from him. And Deer Park had 4,000 kids. So in my career, I've been able to, and I think this is important, and I know I seem like I'm rambling, but I'm trying to tie it all together. I've been so lucky to coach at rural schools with 400 people. CE King was a urban school that was low socioeconomics right there in Third Ward area, which if you're from Houston, you know that dirty third. And then Deer Park was 4,000 kids. And so I've seen a broad spectrum. And in Barbers Hill, it is a, what do they call it? The Robin Hood in Texas. It's a more affluent school due to chemical plants in the district and everything. So I've seen the whole spectrum, and you realize that all kids are the same. You know, there's some different outside things, but kids are kids, or young adults, young men. You know, no one wants to be called a kid, and they just want to be treated with respect. And it's fun to see those and to get out of my comfort system. I think a lot of people, especially with how things are going in the world, it's important to get out of your bubble and see the other side, because we realize we're all great and we're all human beings. From Deer Park, I got the opportunity. I got called by Kenny Harrison, who's was the head coach at Port Arthur Memorial, won a lot of games there, coached people like Jamal Charles and several other phenomenal athletes. He got the head job at Summer Creek, had got my name. I was able to call me up, and I've been there 3 years now as the O-line run game coordinator. And we're lucky enough to have some great athletes there. And that kind of just takes along the journey.
Awesome. That sounds like an incredible journey. You know, everywhere you go, you know, there's different spots in the country where you're like, oh, that's a football area. You know, you think like Georgia or Florida, but man, whenever you hear Texas, you know it's different.
In Texas.
Exactly.
There's those small towns that the real deal, they'll shut down still. Like when I was at Tatum, people are going to be at the game. There ain't nothing else going on, you know, and it's awesome. It's an amazing experience when a high school, which I think we've kind of gotten away from, and not to get on any soapbox or anything, but it's important for communities to have that tie of tradition and to have a culture. And you know, I think that's the new thing that is trickling down from colleges is culture. And I am a firm believer that if you really want to win programs, and I don't mean a season, I mean if you want to program year after year, you develop that culture in that locker room. And small towns have that built in already, and it's amazing.
I don't mean to get off topic, but you mentioned
you're never gonna. You can go off tangents. I'll talk about anything. I teach science. We can go astronomy, physics, whatever you got, man.
Exactly. You mentioned science, and you mentioned I saw astronomy on the email that we were talking about. I teach earth science and oceanography, so we have a similar background there, Coach. So that interests me too. How long have you been teaching astronomy?
So I'm going into my 16th year of education. Okay, I've taught. Again, I'm from 2A. Now, them 2A schools, you are the department, you know, and there I taught some AP chemistry, predominantly, mostly I've taught physics. I think probably about 8 years of my career, I've taught physics. I've taught biology, AP biology. I've taught aquatic science. I've taught IPC. I'm currently teaching astronomy. I've taught 5th and 6th grade PE. I've taught 7th grade earth science, 8th grade life science. I love all the sciences, you know. I always say first, it's kind of it's one of them deals. I'm more of a nerd than anything else. Like, I really am. I love science. I get excited about stuff. I get excited. I think it's amazing, like with astronomy, the possibility of parallel universes and stuff. But that's another day.
Yeah, that it's always one of my most interesting topics when once I get to it in the earth science. Once I
Right?
get to the astronomy unit, all the kids are like, "You really like teaching this, don't you?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah."
Because you don't understand how big this is. Like, you know what a light year is? It's crazy. So
Exactly. All right, so we'll go back to football a little bit here.
yeah. Whatever. Let's go. Yes.
How would you describe your own personal leadership style? Because everyone likes to talk about culture nowadays, and even I have been doing a lot more research into culture. So I'm more interested in uh, everybody's own personal leadership style. So how would you describe yours?
Like I said earlier, I identify myself as an offensive lineman. I mean, I embrace it. That's who I am. And I think offensive linemen are the personification of a servant leader. They're the guys that are going to show up every single day. They're going to be front in line. They're going to grind. They're not going to do it for the newspaper. They're not going to do it for the accolades. They're going to do it because we is more important than me. Okay, my whole life, probably a lot of it dictated. I'm an only child. I love to be part of a team. I love the feeling that I've done something good and that I contributed to the betterment of an entire group. And that's how I lead, is that I believe as a leader, if I want to pull a weight, I've got to grab the rope in the beginning and I'm going to talk to the people behind me and I'm going to tell them, look, this is us. This isn't, y'all aren't doing this for me. We're doing this for us. And I think as a leader, that's what you got to do. You inspire people with a vision. You start with a clear communicated vision and you show the passion that you're not just doing this and you're not just, saying things to saying things. You're doing it because you believe it. And I believe football is one of those things that is the last front of defining and helping out what is masculinity. And I do think there's a difference between masculinity and toxic masculinity. And I think it's important as new coaches to learn the difference and to not reinforce those things, because I think it's okay, because there's an attack on all of it. So as a leader, I want to make young men understand. And I think this is what football is important about, because we live in a time that we're attacked by, the effects of possible concussions, which I believe technique and equipment has changed so much drastically since those studies come out. But again, another time. But the point is that in life as a man, things are going to hit you and you have to react. You can't ball up. You can't fall down. You got to get back up and you got to go. And I think that's what it teaches young men. And it's not for everybody. And it doesn't make it bad if you're not, football's not for you, because you can find it other ways. But I think it's a defining front. And in my leadership, I'm a firm believer that, specifically high school, because I haven't ever coached college and pros, but as a leader, I'm there for those kids, number one. I want young men and to know, and I keep in touch forever. I've been lucky enough. Robert Walker was my offensive line coach in college at Stephen F. Austin. To this day, I've got texts on my phone that at 4:30 in the morning, he sends me inspirational messages. He coached me 15 years ago now. There's no reason for that. To me, that's what a leader, that's what a coach is for life. And it's because you care about people. And that I care. I love people intently and deeply, and I love just humanity, and I want the place to be better, and I think I can make it better, so I do it.
Awesome. So in your title, part of your title is run game coordinator. Now, at least that's not a title that you see, not necessarily here where I am in Virginia, but it's becoming much more popular, like run game coordinator or passing game coordinator. So can you kind of describe what your experience has been? Like, what are your duties as the run game coordinator?
Well, I think first off, if you're a true O-line coach, and O-line coaches know what I'm saying, sometimes I think we're our own little kind of cult, you know what I'm saying? But when you're a true O-line coach, you're already a run game coordinator because you understand the run scheme. And I think the main duty as the run game coordinator is to analyze the defense and make sure that you're running the right place to the right fronts, checking it to the right way, that your job is to help. You're just an extension of that offensive coordinator. You're an extension of all that. And I think it's really what a head O-line coach is. I think they're synonymous. I think, it's just they're finally starting to realize how in depth offensive line play is. You know, it's an amazing position. In no other sport do you have five guys that have to work as one and then have no stats for them. They don't score. Every other sport, every position can have the possibility to score, but we're not going to do that. So I think it takes a lot of understanding, a lot of dedication. It's like calculus. You know, there's a lot of variables, and I've got to teach young men how to plug and play in a dynamic, open world situation. So as run game coordinator, I'm the one that has to. I'm a math teacher. I have to identify all those variables and communicate them.
All right. Makes me want to ask my head coach if I can add that title to my.
Right. That's it.
Yeah. All right.
Titles are really just about money, anyways, right? So, no.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's certain positions that are known for being like the personality people on the team, you know, like wide receivers are, you know, loud, me type guys. And, you know, the quarterback's always the guy getting the glory. But, and you kind of mentioned it when you talked about your own personal leadership style, but what are some ways that you allow your offensive lineman group to develop their own unique personality within that team structure?
Well, you know, you allow them, you know, one just off the top of my head, you know, allow them to create their own identity, right? I always tell them, like, I'll tell my guys, we're like the special forces unit. We're a unit inside a unit. You know, we're the guys that are going to go get the job done. And I think that the type of people that are gravitated to O-line are young men that that are more, a lot of times analytical, a lot of times more like, you know, they were real cognitive guys. So I allowed them in a lot of it. And I don't know if I'm really answering the question right here, but it's letting linemen know it's the only position. Everybody else, you got to teach humility. Most linemen, you actually teach a little swagger too, you know, and I think that's a lot of letting them understand because, you know, I was a big kid and all that. You have a lot of linemen that were raised, hey, hold back, you're going to hurt little Johnny, right? So you have a lot of young guys. I mean, you coach O-line, a lot of freshmen stuff that are so passive because they don't realize they're gentlemen, they're gentle giants and stuff like that. And so it's like it's just letting them know that, hey, you're an athlete too. Like, you know, they've been kind of given these false labels and stereotypes all their life that, oh, they're just the big fat kid or whatever, you know, and that time's over. You know, it takes a lot of athleticism to play O-line. And I think more than letting them have their own identity, it's more getting them to coax them out of their shell and let them know that, hey, it's okay to sit at the big boy table and that you're part of it. You're just as much as that receiver that's catching those yardage and stuff. And it's okay to be confident. You know, there's a difference between being confident and cocky. Confident people back it up when it's on the line. Cocky people hide when it's on the line. You know, and linemen don't understand that sometimes. They were real humble, you know, people. It's like, hey, it's okay. Step up. Be a little braggadocious on the field. Have a Jekyll and Hyde mentality, okay? Step on that field and be a bad man. You know, it's the only time in your life that not only will you not get in trouble, but you'll be actually lauded for you know, a little aggressive behavior, and we all got that pin up inside, you know. So I think it's just letting them know that, hey, you're bad men too, you know.
That was an excellent answer, Coach. You didn't mess that up at all. So you definitely answered it how I wanted you to. So in the email that we had going back and forth, you mentioned that one of your passions is player development. Can you describe some ways that you focus on developing the offensive lineman? So like from that freshman that you get the first day he shows up until the day he graduates, what are some ways that you work on developing him?
It's kind of an extension of that last statement. You know, I start first off, even with those younger guys, just convincing them that, you know, that it's okay. They got confidence. And then O-line is such a position that they've got to develop such a camaraderie. You know, when you look at the collegiate and the pro level and you see these outstanding combo blocks, it's because those guys have worked together a lot, you know. I believe, and with this year, it's a little harder with the COVID, but I'm real big on having my guys over at the house and having them develop that relationship. I think as coaches, that's so important. They need to know that you care about them, and you need to do that from a young age and ask them about school and let them know that you care. And once you've developed that relationship, now you start to mold them and where they need to go. Okay. And sometimes being a science guy, I get too caught up in technique. But one of the things that I do is during practice, I'm going to yell a lot. Okay. Because I want to create stress, because football is a highly stressful game, right? So they need to perform under stress. So I think part of it is getting them to understand the developmental process of throwing them off guard, of catching them off guard, and sitting there and seeing how they react and force them in those situations. Then coming back later and loving them, because in the game, and then in the game, I'm a cool customer, because in the game they got the stress. My job now is to demonstrate, hey, we got this under control, so I'm gonna stay smooth. So I think a lot of my player development is more of a cognitive and a mental and just confidence deal. The athleticism will come, and all of that really is in the off season. If they can't bend in the hips, they're not going to be able to play. So, I place a high emphasis in good strength and conditioning, and making sure that they understand the importance of taking care of their bodies and stuff. I put a lot of things in their hands. Mondays, I give 2 things in their hands. I have weekly points of emphasis, and then I have a thing called a skill acquisition contract, which has about 8 steps. So what I do is I focus on 2 skills a week, one that they pick and one that I pick. That's all we're going to coach. Because I was real bad as a young coach of coaching 25,000 different things once. Well, I'd rather coach 2 things 12,500 times. You know what I'm saying? Because by the end, and we are playing for a 16-week season, at least in Texas, that's 32 different skills that they had gained and mastered, right? And part of the contract has 9 different steps that they go through, including they got to get my signature, my assistant's signature, the freshman O-line signature, and the head coach's signature, because they're going to go tell him what they have to improve and how they're going to do it. And I think getting them to vocalize and do all that is where it is. And that's how you do skill development. We forget as coaches, I do at least, it's so easy once you've done it a lot. But then I think back, hey, as a freshman in college, I did the double guard pull where I pulled into another guard, and I'm like, man, I'll look at kids like, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, you did it. And so I think it's important when you're looking at player development, quit thinking like a coach and think like a kid. And luckily, I've never mentally, I guess, matured too much. I've always been able to relate to young adults, and I know that their thought processes are different. They don't think about us long term and stuff. So if I can sit there and make them repeat things, and it's just taking a lot of instructional strategies from the classroom and applying it on the field. As a good coach, you should be a good teacher. So I do that, and then also along the way, on game days, I'll give a game day reminder sheet, which just goes back over some things. And I'm going to hand write a note on the bottom. Never sleep on how effective handwritten stuff does. I mean, think about it. Every time I've gotten some handwritten, I feel special, especially nowadays. Everything's email. So I make sure I tell them, all right, just a little thing. Hey, I'm proud of you. You did this, blah, 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 blah. And then when I grade film, I have a whole grade packet sheet. And then, like we talked about it later, I can share on the YouTube, just show you. I put watermarks kind of on it because I want it to look official and I want it to be special. Everybody else feels special but O Linemen. So I try to do more for them. And this is part of the development, is letting them know that they're special too. I just can't stress that enough because they don't get that.
That's awesome, Coach. If you don't mind, I'm actually going to flip-flop these
You
2
flip
questions. So instead
we
of
can
asking
talk
you,
Russian Orthodox to the church, whatever you want. I'll spit out something. It don't bother me none.
instead of talking drills first, I want to talk technique first, because I feel like the technique will lead into the drills. So you also mentioned in the email that you're also pretty passionate about technique. You mentioned it just a few moments ago as well. Offensive line is probably, in my opinion, the most technique-driven position that there is.
Totally.
Can you take some time to describe on what are the techniques that you like to focus on the most for offensive linemen? What are the ones that you teach the most?
Well, I'm a zone philosophy guy. That you really, if you look at most offensive linemen, you got gap guys, you got your gap scheme guys, you got your zone guys. I'm a zone guy. So everything's based off that. And just starting, I scaffold. So the first thing that we're going to do every day is attack our landmarks. And a lot of people used to call boards steps. I've gotten away from the boards. a lot of times now I use, and I make things with PVC pipe, like because it's way cheaper than buying it. Yeah, I mean, it's way cheaper. Anyways, so I'll make like a PVC like X type deal, so we can step in certain quadrants because we need to understand. I still have name for steps like half bucket, pail, a lot of McNally type stuff. That's where I really started and what do you call it, gnash your teeth or cut my teeth on is Jim McNally type stuff. So I use a lot of the pail and brace pang, stuff like that. Um, but I teach first off, I want to break things down always in the simplest sense. So really run blocking, pass blocking, I got to cover his hip with my hip. I need to understand that relationship. So I described that. And so the first drill we're going to do every day is go through all of our techniques that we would do through our run blocking. So like if we're paling with a brace or whatever, so my play side foot's going to just slightly kind of step back like a timing type step. My second step's jamming straight at my landmark. And when I say landmark, so like inside zone for me, I'm wanting vertical push. So I base cover, uncovered. We can go into that later for guys who don't know, but covered guy, his landmark's going to be play side number. So if I'm going to pail step, if I've got a backside shade really, and so that way I don't remove my hip for that guy that's uncovered coming over. So we're gonna pail right, half bench left, because that's gonna be the things that are applying. And I really, really, really believe that your drill work must apply to the game. Okay, don't just do things because they look pretty. Don't do things because someone else told you to do things. Do things because you researched it and it applies for you. That's one of the things as I've gotten older also is that I used to be a purist. Oh my gosh, we have to do it this way. But then I realized I don't have, freaking Michael Orr, and a lot of that technique's tough. But anyways, so I'm going to go specifically through each run block, where they're going to steps and their drive in, where their landmarks are. Once we're done with that, we're going 2v2. So 2 versus 2. And that way we're going to work our wide zone combos and our inside zone combos, because they've got to hip to hip, or get to my landmarks, so they learn that timing. Those are going to be my daily drills, no matter what, no matter what. I want to get those things in. I'm lucky with a lot of time. So with pass, I'm going to work all my different pass sets. I call them just 1 set, 2 set, quick set, jump set, a negative set, or a post set. So we're going to go through those things. We're going to talk about it always, what we're trying to do. I'm a big, get them in my 90. I right out my nose, out the shoulder to the side. Left side has to have left foot back. We're going to learn stances on the freshman level and stuff. We'll do drill work with that early on. Once we do 2v2, if I've got time, I want 4, like a half line. I'll go 2 half lines with the backs with just the down linemen. As run game coordinator, that's one of the things that you got to really look at as an offensive line coach. I had to learn when I got here was understanding that backs path. And if you want the key to O-line run blocking, it's angle of departure. Your angle of departure up front has to match the backs. And that back has to know where that bubble is, and he has to see those guys in front of him. So it's just getting reps with that. We run a little gap scheme. So like on Tuesdays, I'll spend a couple of periods doing pull drills with like GT. We do a lot of GT counter. Guard, I'd call it kick pull, where I'm into the line, kicking out, pull right, hit right, pull left, hit left, a lot of guys, all that. And then I skip pull with my backside tackle. I think it's big time. Helps because he's got to get off level, just a little scheme-wise deal. If your tackle's not deeper with your guard, he's not going to be able to read it effectively if he has to log or anything like that. So, and again, we can get into that later if anyone wants to. But so we'll work a little bit of that. But for the most part, I'm doing, and I scaffold. We're doing our steps for our solo blocks, or even if we're compared, then we're going to go 2v2, then we're going to go half line, then we're going to go inside run fit. That way they're just progressing through it and applying that drill work. And I place emphasis on, and when I ask him, when do we use this? Like every single time. So when are you going to use this technique? Okay. And I don't want robots though. Like I teach it, and then on varsity, when they come to the sideline, if they did something or during film, I'd be like, why'd you do this? And they give me a good answer. Works for me, because they've got to know they're just tools in their, one coach, I work with Scott Highsmith, who is awesome. Another lucky guy I got to work with, who actually was like Hal Mummy's roommate in college, and was at Kentucky at the birth of air raid on the wide scale. And, one of the things he told me was all we can do is give them tools in the bag, and so I'm big on trying to teach them when to use the right tool for the right project.
So you mentioned that you're more of a zone guy.
Right.
our offense, one of our top plays is outside zone.
Are
And
y'all
so
doing like outside, like hash number sideline, or are you doing more off tackle wide zone?
it's more of the off tackle wide zone because
Perfect.
we teach the running back to read the tackle's block.
Yep, that's wide zone. Perfect.
If the tackle is able to reach the outside line defensive lineman, he keeps going around that tackle and then cuts upfield.
And right.
If the tackle has to kick the guy out, he
It might be the
cuts.
best play in football, especially
I
at the
love
high
it.
school level.
I used to be a wing T guy, but
Oh,
we started running
no,
this.
I'm joking.
Hey, we started running. I said used to. We started running this, and I was like, man, I love this play.
Right.
This is actually my first year as the offensive line coach. The last two I've spent as a linebackers coach, so I was on the opposite side of the ball, having to defend it. But can you kind of go through your progression with your outside zone or wide zone? Talk a little bit about what does it mean to be covered, uncovered,
Mhm.
those sorts of things.
So I'm lucky in Texas, and I've been lucky to be placed in situations that I've developed relationships with guys that really know a lot. I learned wide zone from a guy, Nick Caduti, who is considered probably the wide zone guy. I think he is I think he's probably one of the best high school coaches out there. He's at least one of the biggest brands, but he knows his stuff unbelievably well. And I was able to learn it from him. And we have slightly different kind of philosophies on stuff. So it's not how he actually does it, but a lot of what we do in a lot of not just wide zone, but everything I predicate off 3 steps, 5 steps, or 7 steps because it just helps with timing. So as we're going down the line, my landmark, I'm trying to get my backside hand 1 inch past the sternum, right? My play side hand's going play side breast because I'm really trying to get that guy turned. So my landmark is going to be that for both the covered and the uncovered guy. When I say covered guy, I'm saying anybody that is a first level defender that is going to be play side, head up, or backside of me. Uncovered, there's no first level defender on him, right? So like if you're in an even front, like a 4-2, 4-2, or 4-3-5, or 4-2-5, or 4-3, or whatever, your guard wouldn't work with your tackle because he knows he's covered, I'm covered. So now it moves back. Uncovered guy always works for the covered guy play side. Both of them have the same landmark. And so what we talk about is if by my 3rd step I haven't reached, I wash. Okay, and I'm real big on the wash of throwing that backside hand and trying to take them where they want to go faster and they want to get there. Uncovered guy, if I haven't reached my 3rd step, I climb. Okay, so those are the main things. And then when I go from center backside, it's either there's 2 philosophies on that: either a hard reach, like what the NFL does. I think a lot of times it's easier for high school guys to cut. And can y'all cut in Virginia or? I lost you. You're mute.
Sorry, yeah, I was
Oh,
muted.
you're good.
It has to be
In the tackle box,
within the
essentially.
tackle box, 1 step and down. It's you can't go forward and cut.
Yeah, see, so that I teach off the 3rd step relay, and what I do is I call it the death roll, like an alligator, and I'm taking backside hand, punching through play side thigh board, and then rolling into him, just getting as wide as possible. Because in my understanding of the play, if I can bottle up everything backside and I can stretch play side, getting those linebackers to overcommit, I can set up that running back's lane to cut back, right? A lot of all zone play. Go watch, study the best zone plays, collegiate pro level. They hit A gap. Now A gap might be on the numbers. It don't matter, but it's going to be A gap, which makes a lot of sense because it's the center where I'm most protected, right? And so as an O line coach or a run game coordinator, if you're looking out and your backs are getting out past your tackle and they're not getting many yards, don't be yelling at us, And so a lot of that is understanding with that back, that patience also. I think it's better from pistol because it allows him to make a vertical cut. I think wide zone's better with a vertical cut. When he's offset, he can still do it. It's not impossible or anything, but he's got to be a little patient right there because he needs to let the center get out in front of him. Just talking overall scheme of the play. And by center getting out in front of him, I'm just like, make sure that center's out front because if he gets in front of him, he's not going to see that A-gap cut. And I think a lot of offensive level anyways, you can get those linebackers to over pursue because I think predominantly you still have most teams running what I call stretch or bounce, old school hash number sideline. and I only went to wide zone about 3 years ago, and it's all production go up from about 2.9 to over 5 instantly because it allows those options, right? It's a lot easier to wash somebody than reach. I'll tell you what, from the experience of playing myself, it is a hard thing to reach a good D lineman because you've got to understand losing that depth and getting around him and stuff. So I think it allows for options.
Yeah, that's probably going to be one of my biggest challenges because this year, 4 of our starting offensive linemen graduated. And
Mm,
so we're bringing up a younger group. And the one who's returning was a freshman, and he was pretty raw. And he had a lot of holding penalties on this play, unfortunately, because he wasn't able to get that wash. He was trying to reach.
do you teach a double under
Yeah,
like this? That for me, when I switched to that helped with a lot of holding. Like emphasize those tight elbows, and
hmm
that may help on some of that. Just
yeah.
off
So
topic, I guess I'm just kind of
uh,
to me because they go that bear hug. They want to give hugs when that old school.
yeah, he's a pretty big boy, and he was used to. He had that technique where he would try to hug the guy. Unfortunately, because when they hear the word reach block, they're actually trying to literally
Right?
reach out with him, and
That's
they're not moving
big.
their feet. Yeah,
You
and so
block with
it's
your hips and feet, not your shoulders and hands. That's what I tell my
yeah,
guys all the time. I think the more you can get up with cliches or sing songs or idiom, whatever, and I tell them hips and feet, not shoulders and hands, and that's an important deal.
exactly. So I didn't put this on the question list, but can you go over how you teach pass blocking a little bit, pass pro?
Yeah, I'm predominantly a man slide. I think the man slide protection takes care of a lot of things. When I was going through the programs and playing, it was a lot of mainly man protections where we've got linemen have down linemen, and then we're sorting out different linebackers. I'm big on the whatever side they're on, that foot's going to be back and getting them in your 90. Okay. So getting them and keeping them in your 90. Otherwise, making sure their inside half of their body's on your outside half of your body. I teach tackle. I think tackles is a different position than centers and guards. A lot of people say one's in a field, one's in a phone booth, which I guess is an antiquated term. Nobody even knows that. Kids are like phone booth. Anyways, tackles need to be one arm long, one arm strong. You teach that tackle to be more predominantly concerned with pass blocking with his outside hand because it's going to keep him from opening the gate. And what I teach them is I say, hey, we want the Wu-Tang, right? We want the Wu-Tang W right here. Palms down, hands nice, relaxed, comfortable, and I want to stab. I talk about stabbing a lot because a lot of times, I don't know how to put people don't really fight, which I guess is a good thing, but they don't understand not to punch through things, not to things. So if I talk about stabbing, it gets the emphasis across. And so I tell them one arm long, one arm strong, ready for that counter. Setting square right there and making sure that at some point I'm going to set the fight. I can't just keep giving ground. A lot of my past progressions, I'm going to start. We're just going to do the sets on air, and then we start set with people. And we do like mirror drill. And then I like to do both for run and pass once a week, once every other week. I call them bad body drills. Like I've gotten out of position, I've lost, and now recovery type drills. So we're going through those type things. I think in all protections, your centers and guards are responsible for the integrity of the pocket. They've got to set it hard on the line, and then the tackles are responsible for the width of the pocket. And so I base everything off that. And then with the man slide, like I said, and it can be a lot easier. A lot of people do uncovered sets of slide. I'm too analytical. I say, so if our pass protection is Roscoe or whatever to the right, the right side guard has number 1 down lineman. Right side tackle has number 2 down lineman. They don't kick anything. I don't care about whatever comes out because that's either your hot or the back's responsibility. Center's the go-between guy. He's the only guy that doesn't have a 90. He's got a 180, so his role is 0 to backside A gap because he needs to know I can't let anybody cross back face because I don't have air. Backside guard has backside B. Backside tackle has backside C gap. And I teach everything, run or pass. I teach them their gap responsibility first. Like all zones, no matter what it is, I have play side gap responsibility. If they understand that first, they're good. And then you get into gaps, I have backside gap responsibility, or I'm trying to expand or whatever with the pullers. And I know I'm throwing a lot out quick. I can talk forever, so I'm trying to not keep you all night. But when teaching on that, you're going to set to a point. You want to beat them to the point and then set the fight right there. It's time to set the fight and let's go. I teach a post step, which is like I tell it, it's my inside foot's going to step up and inside because I got to get that guy back in the 90. And I tell him it's like a jab in boxing. I want to step and punch into it right there, right? I got to cut off an inside rush. One of the 12th and 13th commandments that got lost where I will not give up the inside rush. You cannot do that stuff as an O lineman.
Exactly. And hey, Coach, I don't mind that you like to talk, Coach, because I can tell that you're very knowledgeable and you're very passionate about what you're talking about. So that's always it gets my blood going. I'm ready to go out and coach offensive line right now. Exactly. So what are your personal views on offense and defense? Do you have a preferred offensive scheme, one that you believe in wholeheartedly? And what are your views on defensive schemes?
I can go a little bit broader than that. Like specifically, I said I'm zone. I think that here's the deal with offense, and I kind of touched on it earlier. Run schemes, pass protection, and stuff like that, you have to realize they're like calculus. The kid has to understand a lot of independent variables, and he's not sitting at a desk. It is a live scenario where people are coming at him and there is a physical threat. You have to limit that stuff. You have to sit there and find what you want to do and what defines you, limit it so you can teach it effectively. And then me personally, I think that formations are like geography. Okay. I can memorize 1 million of formations. I can make a defense draw cards all day Sunday running one play because I can do it out of 50 different formations, right? Because it doesn't take that much of adjustment, right? Everybody can sit there and color a map. Not everybody can do calculus. And if you start throwing a lot of stuff, if you get more than, I don't like to get above about 4 run schemes, okay? And I think you got to look at it on a basic level. An offense can only do this. They can attack A gap, they can attack C gap. B gap's too ambiguous. You have too many people that can fill. A gap, C gap, D gap, and then your nows, right? Which are like your outside hitches on the front level. The second level, you can attach your rat or your hook, whatever you want to call that middle area with linebackers, curls and flats to each side. And then back deep, you have your deep thirds. So I think if you really want to be an effective offensive coordinator, you're going to look through and make sure you have a way to attack each of those zones because that's all they can defend defensively. And if you go through preseason in the spring and the summer and you sit as a staff and you start looking at those defenses and you look at what they have responsibility. You want to be a good offensive coordinator, understand defenses, okay? You look at where their responsibilities are and what you like, then you can cut down a lot of wasted time on game planning during the week and season because you should be focusing. You listen to Belichick, you listen to Saban, you got to game plan based on personnel and matchups. And if you're wasting time looking at, heck, we should all know where we want to run inside zone based on our preferences. And we should have that pulled up. We did that work. I'm big on preloading stuff. Do your work early on so you can focus on what needs to change, because there may be some subtle changes in a 4-2-5 from one opponent to another, but you can identify it quickly. And then you can get your staff, your assistant coaches to focus more when they're watching film on who do we want to attack? Where are our matchups? Where we can find that? Okay. Who's our best player? Where do we get in the areas that can find, it's kind of a hit chart type deal, I believe, offensively.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm definitely a believer in the KISS philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it simple, stupid. And I get into arguments with my head coach sometimes, and sometimes the current offensive coordinator. I'm like, dude, you want me to run how many run plays? And
That's always offensive line coach. They just, they think, oh man, come on, just get a body on body. That's one of the phrases I hate. Body on body, coach. Come on, hands dirt, let's go.
One of the compromises was I was like, okay, we can still run wide zone, we can still run jet sweep, we can still run toss, but let's make it one blocking scheme. Let's just block it like outside zone each time.
And
right?
See, this is kind of what I was talking about. You just described 3 plays that attack either C or D gap. Do you really need 3 plays that attack the same area? So it's streamlining things and understanding that, hey, they may be great plays. And early on, and that's what the spring is for, is to determine what fits your kids best. Maybe toss is. Maybe pin and pull, maybe tunnel sweep is great for you. Better in wide zone, good, great. You believe in it. That's what matters. Like you said, wing T, not my cup of tea. There's a lot of daggum people win a lot of games with wing T because they believe in it. And that is the main thing is you've got to understand it, believe it, and tell that kid believes it. Because everybody has to believe that they are going to win. I think that's a mistake. It's a little off topic, but positive language in a locker room, in a coach's office is so key. Because if you really don't believe that you're going to win state, you're not going to win. You have to go into it going, we're going to win state. The only thing that can happen, everybody right now that hadn't played a game has a state ring on their finger because the only thing that can happen is someone takes it away from you. Don't let anyone take what's yours. That's what I tell my guys.
All right. So I'm not going to keep you too much tonight, Coach. So some final thoughts here. I know we were talking before we started recording the podcast, and you guys are starting this weekend,
Yes.
which is, I'm sure you're pumped. And we in here in Virginia, at the moment, unless something changes, we're not playing until February. So there's a lot of other guys like me. If you look at Twitter, it seems like a lot of the other coaches out there, they're struggling to find positive situations, right? They're struggling to find the positives, and there's a lot of negative going on right now. What would be some words of wisdom that you have for our listeners that are who are struggling to find their positives?
Well, if your kid was being negative, would you let him? Why are you letting yourself? You know what I'm saying? It's a trap. And I'm not saying like, hell, I get negative sometimes too, but it's a trap and it does no good, right? Sitting there feeling sorry for yourself has never hurt anybody. So what you do is find what you can do. Like Zoom and stuff like that. I know through a lot of the early COVID stages, I was having position meetings every 3 times a week just to stay. And a lot of times, how are you? Is everybody healthy? Because I want those kids to know that I care about them and I can expose them to things and I can find what you can do and build on it. There's never no answer. The person that says, well, there's nothing they can do. That's not how you get ahead in life, right? You got to sit there, write it down, find a journal, do what you can, identify the positives. The positives may just be, hey, all I can do is go sweep my garage, but at least sweeping the garage, I'm keeping my house clean. And of course, that's an analogy. I'm not a literal garage, but front load some stuff. Meet with your coaches, get on a staff and do what I said earlier, where, hey, we can identify some defenses. Let's build on stuff. Let's get excited. Ain't nothing. My wife hates it whenever I hang out with coaching friends because what do you do all night at a get together? You talk ball. That's what we do is talk ball. If you're a coach, you talk ball. I mean, and some coaches may not. And surprisingly, I don't even watch sports. I'm a competitor. I'm about competing and about being part of a team. I'd rather watch a cartoon or a comedy show or read actually, but not here or there. It's about just finding what you can do. And if you can't, even if you can't be around other people, how can you improve yourself? Okay. Look at those ways that you can improve yourself. Study coaches. I studied Belichick. I studied Saban. I studied Bill Walsh. Those guys get great for a reason, and I'll tell you right now, I could never be Bill Belichick or Nick Saban. I don't have that computer. Those guys are unreal. They've identified it, every freaking variable at winning. They've quantitated it, and they find a way to make sure that they're maximizing. It's amazing what they do, but I can take stuff from it. I can learn. Don't be a lifetime learner. Don't, practice what you preach. That's the big thing. I think in all people, not even coaches, it's like we hit 18 and then it's like, well, that's done. Now I don't have to work anymore, right? And it's like, hey, life is easy. Just work hard. Get out there day in, day out. Take pride in what you do. My coaches will laugh. I'm a run game coordinator. I spot the ball every day. And I tell people I am the best ball spotter in the Southwest region. Why? Because I want to take pride in what I do because I want to show my guys that. Goes back to servant leadership. I expect my guys to work hard, and I ask them, hey, have you ever seen me not give 100%? Well, no, coach. Well, I expect the same from you. If I'm going to do it, and if I'm going to ask them to do it, I'm going to do it.
Oh, man, I'm ready to go coach. Well, Coach, thank you for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you coming on.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me anytime.
And hopefully I'm able to get you to come back on maybe after the season.
Yeah. It'll probably be better. I think we have several Saturday. It just timed up because our game's on Saturday tomorrow. Whatever I can do, I'm all about helping the community. Anybody that wants to get in touch with me, you can find me on Twitter, It's at I think at Coach John Arnett, and then the same emails Coach John Arnett or John A Arnett. Someone else beat me to it, I guess, at Gmail. I'm about helping. I'm an O line guy. I think the better we are in the profession, the better. I'm who wants to be selfish and hide their stuff. I'll help whoever wants it because I want us all to be great.
I will make sure that Coach Arnett's information is in the description below. This has been the Armchair Coaching Podcast, and this is Coach Sheffer signing out.